Futoshi Matsunaga was a Japanese serial killer who turned psychological control into a weapon, forcing victims to torture and even murder their own family members through threats, isolation, and extreme brainwashing. Operating in the late 1990s, he targeted vulnerable households, took control of their finances, and used staged punishments to break people mentally until they obeyed him out of fear. Investigators later revealed that several killings were carried out by victims themselves after prolonged coercion, creating a chain of violence where family members as young as 5 years old were forced to turn on each other. Several bodies were dismembered and destroyed to erase evidence, leaving little physical trace until a survivor escaped and alerted police. Matsunaga ended up being sentenced to death in 2005, and the case remains one of Japan's most extreme examples of serial manipulation. In May of 2024, Jack Joseph Ball murdered his 30-year-old pregnant sister Bethany Ann Israel during what was supposed to be a family dinner at his Lakeville, Minnesota home. She was approximately 18 weeks pregnant. When she stopped responding later that night, their mother went to the house and discovered large amounts of blood, prompting a 911 call. Police found an exceptionally violent scene inside the home, including a pool of blood in the kitchen, blood spattered on cabinets, a saw, a hatchet, and dismembered body parts. Investigators said Ball had scattered her remains, including placing a body part on a neighbor's front step. He fled the scene but was later found hiding in a nearby backyard with a self-inflicted knife wound. Handwritten journals recovered from the residence revealed Ball's fixation on his sister's pregnancy, stating he was angry because she lost her virginity and was therefore no longer innocent. The medical examiner ruled her death as complex homicidal violence. Ball has pleaded guilty to premeditated first-degree murder of his sister and her unborn child. Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie, was last seen when her family dropped her off at her home in Arizona on the night of January 31st, 2026. By the following morning, she was gone. Concern quickly grew when she failed to show up for church on Sunday morning, something her friends described as highly out of character, prompting them to contact her family. Inside her home, her car, phone, and daily medication were all left behind, a detail investigators described as especially alarming, considering her limited mobility and reliance on those medications. Police stated she had no history of wandering, confusion, or cognitive decline, making it highly unlikely she would have left on her own, especially at night. Despite the apparent urgency of the situation, there were no publicly reported signs of forced entry or a struggle, only deepening the unease surrounding how she disappeared without a trace. Investigators later described the scene inside the home as very concerning, saying they believe she didn't leave voluntarily and that the case should be treated as a potential crime. Authorities have since collected DNA evidence, involved multiple agencies, and are reviewing tips and nearby surveillance footage, but as of now, no suspect or confirmed lead has been announced.
Talk about it. Or we can hold. I don't know what's going to happen, but I just feel in my soul, only God knows, it could shoot me. It could stab me. It could free me. And see I overdosed on drugs. Thank you for all the things. Who could do this?
That was Michael Jackson on a recorded phone call from 2009, speaking to his former manager Dieter Wiesner just months before his sudden death. Jackson sounds panicked and overwhelmed, telling Wiesner there's a group of people who want to get rid of him. He warns that what he's dealing with is bigger than the government, but never names anyone or explains what he believes they want from him. Many believe the disturbing call is AI generated, but it's not. The call has circulated online for years, long before modern voice cloning tools existed. The audio has resurfaced heavily online in recent days, especially after the newly released Epstein files. Among the materials circulating are photographs showing Michael Jackson and Jeffrey Epstein Epstein together, which has led many to re-examine old footage, interviews, and audio recordings from Michael's final years. While the phone call itself doesn't mention Epstein or make any specific accusations, its timing and tone have caused renewed speculation about what Jackson believed was about to happen to him. Michael died just a few months after making that phone call on June 25, 2009. Authorities ruled his death the result of acute propofol intoxication caused by medical negligence, as his doctor would essentially give him anesthesia to put him to sleep every night. Dr. Conrad Murray was eventually convicted of involuntary manslaughter, and the case was closed as no evidence ever confirmed the threat Jackson believed he was facing. Here's some incredible footage of the oldest person ever captured on film. This is Pope Leo XIII, born in 1810, appearing in an 1898 motion picture at the age of 88. By the time this was filmed, Leo XIII had already been alive for nearly 9 decades. He was born when many people who had fought in the American Revolution were still alive, lived through the reigns of multiple emperors and kings, was already an elderly man during Abraham Lincoln's presidency, and is even older than your mom.
Well, this is my last video. It all has to come to this. Tomorrow is the day of retribution. The day in which I will have my revenge against humanity, against all of you.
That was the final video recorded by 22-year-old Santa Barbara College student Elliot Rodger just one day before he carried out a mass killing in Isla Vista, California. On May 23, 2014, the incel began what he called his day of retribution after years of documenting his anger toward women and sexually active men who he constantly blamed for his loneliness and rejection. In the weeks before the attack, he stockpiled firearms, ammunition, and knives and prepared a 137-page manifesto titled My Twisted World, outlining his grievances and violent intentions.
I don't know why you girls are so repulsed by me. It doesn't make sense. I'm sophisticated. I'm magnificent. I'm the ultimate gentleman. These sunglasses here were $300. Giorgio Armani. So I'll put them on. See?
On the day of the attack, he first stabbed 3 male roommates to death inside his apartment, locking their bodies behind a door to delay discovery. Elliot then drove to a nearby sorority house intending to kill women, but was unable to gain entry. Instead, he shot and killed 2 women outside before continuing through Isla Vista, shooting at random pedestrians and vehicles. After a brief shootout with police, Elliot crashed his car and was found dead inside. 6 people were killed and 14 others were injured. Authorities later confirmed Elliot had been reported to police weeks earlier for disturbing behavior, but no weapons were confiscated. His recorded videos and manifesto continue to circulate online more than a decade after the senseless killings. Tara Calico was a 19-year-old University of New Mexico student who disappeared on September 20th, 1988 while riding her bike near her home in Belen, New Mexico. She never returned, and no physical evidence of her fate was ever found. 3 months after she went missing, a Polaroid was discovered in a Florida parking lot, showing a young woman and a boy bound and gagged inside a van. Tara's family believed the woman closely resembled her, noting similar facial features and a scar consistent with Tara's medical history. But the photo was never definitively identified or traced to its source. Tara Calico was never found, the boy in the photo was never identified, and no arrests were ever made. In 2023, Delbert Cornish shot and killed his 18-year-old daughter, Hope Onyx Cornish, inside their home in Caldwell, Idaho. After killing her, he also shot and killed her pet cat. Cornish later admitted to the killings, telling police, "My kids died by my hand." At the time of her death, Hope had reportedly been turning her life around. Family members said she'd been sober for more than a year, was working, and had recently started building more stability in her life. But despite this, Cornish told investigators he killed her and her cat because he was, quote, tired of them being made fun of. Authorities found no evidence of provocation or self-defense and said the killing was deliberate. Cornish later pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life in prison.
So I got my katana.
It doesn't get easier to watch. Oh, that's a tough watch. That was when Twitch streamer Biscuit suffered a sudden severe injury live on stream after her katana slipped from its sheath. As the blade fell toward the floor, she instinctively tried to grab it, and it sliced into her hand, severing 2 tendons. She ended the stream almost immediately as she was taken to the emergency room.
I need to cut stream. I have to go to ER. I think I f***ed my fingers.
Hours later, the streamer posted an update from the hospital showing her arm heavily bandaged and immobilized. Tendon damage often requires surgery and long rehabilitation, with no guarantee of full strength or mobility ever returning. In 2021, Mexican rapper Dan Sur went viral after revealing he had surgically implanted gold chains into his scalp to replace his hair. He claimed doctors inserted medical hooks directly into his skull so the chains would permanently hang from his head, calling it gold hair. Plastic surgeons who saw the videos warned the procedure was extremely dangerous, with high risks of infection, scarring, and damage to the skull, and said that no reputable clinic would ever perform it. In 2020, a nurse named Donna Montacone, while working at Yale University's fertility center, secretly stole fentanyl from at least 175 vials intended for women undergoing egg retrieval procedures. Over a 5-month period, she replaced the powerful opioid with saline to conceal the theft, leaving patients to endure the invasive procedure with little or no pain relief. Several women later described the pain as torturous and traumatic, including at least one patient who underwent 8 retrievals while fully awake. When patients questioned the severity of the pain, Montacone allegedly assured them it was normal, delaying detection of the abuse. Investigators later determined she was diverting the fentanyl to support her own opioid addiction. She was arrested in 2020, pleaded guilty to drug tampering charges, and was later sentenced to federal prison. This innocent-looking photo was one of the last selfies taken of Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon on April 1, 2014, shortly before they vanished while hiking the El Pianista Trail in Panama. The photo was taken near the trail's end, where hikers are supposed to turn back, but for some reason, the two continued deeper into the jungle instead. In the days that followed, Froon's phone was repeatedly powered off and on as emergency calls were attempted. On the night of April 8th, her camera captured over 90 flash photos in total darkness. Among them is a disturbing close-up believed to show the back of Kremers' head with strands of hair lit up by the flash. It's unknown if either woman was alive by the time these photos were taken. Months later, their backpacks and skeletal remains were found scattered along the jungle, and the exact circumstances of their deaths remain unknown. In 2017, Brooke Preston was brutally killed inside her home by her longtime friend and roommate Randy Herman Jr. after he stabbed her 25 times. Herman admitted he carried out the attack, but claimed he was sleepwalking and had no memory of killing her. Investigators found no medical or behavioral evidence to support a sleepwalking episode, and prosecutors argued the number, placement, and force of the wounds showed conscious intent. The sleepwalking defense was ultimately rejected by the jury, who convicted Herman and sentenced him to prison for the rest of his life. In 2015, actor Steve Rannazzisi, best known for playing Kevin on The League, publicly admitted that he had lied for more than a decade about surviving the 9/11 attacks. He had repeatedly claimed he was working on a high floor at the World Trade Center and narrowly escaped when the planes hit. But after journalists discovered that Merrill Lynch had no offices in the towers and that Rannazzisi was never there, the actor confessed the story was fabricated and that he was actually in Midtown Manhattan. The admission sparked widespread backlash for obvious reasons, with many accusing him of exploiting a national tragedy and the trauma of real survivors, permanently damaging his reputation. Here's a video demonstrating the potency of the venom from a Russell's viper. Russell's vipers are among the most venomous snakes in the world, responsible for tens of thousands of serious bites each year across Southeast Asia. Their venom contains enzymes that aggressively activate the blood's clotting factors, forcing clots to form through the bloodstream. Here's what that looks like in human blood. These abnormal clots can block blood flow to vital organs, increasing the risk of strokes and heart attacks. As clotting factors are rapidly exhausted, the blood loses its ability to clot where it's needed, intentionally leading to internal bleeding, shock, and organ failure. Brett Favre built his reputation on never leaving the field, even when his brain was clearly injured. Over 2 decades, he absorbed countless hits, and later admitted he may have suffered thousands of concussions that were never diagnosed. He said there are entire games he doesn't even remember playing, including big wins and touchdown passes made when he was confused, dizzy, and disoriented. At the time, returning to play after a head injury was often praised as toughness rather than treated as a medical emergency. Favre described playing through ringing ears, flashing lights, and mental fog, classic concussion symptoms that were ignored during an era with virtually no concussion protocols. Painkillers masked the damage, allowing him to stay on the field while repeated hits accumulated. In retirement in 2024, Favre revealed he now has Parkinson's disease, a condition researchers link to long-term head trauma. His famous Iron Man streak of 297 consecutive games is now viewed by neurologists as a warning, showing how endurance in football can come at the cost of permanent brain damage. In 2024, Detroit man Curtis Dixon helped a man he believed was blind and even tried to give him money despite being broke. The encounter was secretly filmed as part of a social media video by Zachary Dereniowski, whose content involves pretending to be vulnerable to test strangers' kindness. Curtis was given $1,000 and the video went viral, portraying him as exceptionally compassionate, and he was given $100,000 more in a follow-up video. But within a few weeks of the videos gaining traction, Dixon was targeted because of the attention and cash he had received. He was lured outside under the pretense of helping a woman with her broken-down car, ambushed, kidnapped, beaten, and forced to withdraw money out of ATMs. His attackers then tied him up, poured gasoline on his SUV, and set it on fire. Luckily, Dixon survived after being pulled to safety, and multiple suspects were arrested, including his own nephew, turning the case into a chilling example of how kindness can turn someone into a target and transform a good deed into a near-fatal outcome. In 2023, 38-year-old Christina Murray from Savannah, Georgia, underwent IVF hoping to finally become a mother, only to face one of the most devastating mix-ups in IVF history. After giving birth in December, she was stunned when her newborn son's features didn't match the white sperm donor she had chosen. A DNA test later revealed the unthinkable. The embryo wasn't hers at all. For 5 months, she breastfed, nurtured, and bonded with the baby until a court ruled she had to surrender him to his biological parents. Now separated from the child she carried and cared for, Murray is suing the clinic responsible, describing the ordeal as a nightmare that robbed her both of her dream of motherhood and the son she thought was hers. In 2022, DMV rapper Markel Moro, aka Gunu, was shot and killed in Washington, D.C. Days later, his family held a memorial inside a D.C. nightclub where his embalmed body was dressed in designer clothes, propped upright on stage, and displayed while his music played to a crowd. The invite-only event was attended by family, friends, and fans, turning a nightclub into a viewing space and leaving people standing feet away from his real corpse. There's no evidence Gunu ever requested this, making it one of the strangest memorials ever held for a deceased rapper. In 1984, while filming Armor of God in Yugoslavia, Jackie Chan attempted what should have been a routine stunt, jumping from a wall onto a tree branch. But the branch snapped, sending him plummeting headfirst onto a pile of jagged rocks. His skull immediately cracked open, driving bone fragments deep into his brain. Emergency surgery saved his life, but not without leaving a permanent hole in his skull. Now covered by a plastic plate he can still feel to this day. Melissa Nelson worked as a dental assistant in Iowa for over 10 years before being fired, not for poor performance, but because her boss found her irresistible. He told her that if his pants ever bulged, it was her fault, and claimed that her presence alone threatened his marriage. Despite the clear sexual undertones, Melissa sued him for discrimination and lost. In a shocking 2012 decision, the all-male Iowa Supreme Court ruled that it was legal to fire someone for being too attractive, as long as it wasn't based on gender but on personal feelings. In 1925, Ora Ralph Thomas, an Illinois sheriff's deputy during the Prohibition era, was assassinated by members of the KKK. Thomas was the leader of an armed anti-Klan paramilitary group, making him a direct target. When 3 Klansmen ambushed him, Thomas returned fire, shooting and killing all 3 of his attackers before succumbing to his own wounds. In 2019, police uncovered an abuse case at the Danby House nursing home in North Carolina after staff were caught recording and encouraging violent confrontations between elderly residents with dementia. Investigators said workers laughed, filmed, and allegedly urged a 73-year-old man to attack a 70-year-old woman, shouting instructions like punch her in the face while she cried for help. Both residents required constant care and couldn't fully understand what was happening, turning a supervised environment into exploitation for entertainment. The footage led to criminal charges and renewed scrutiny over how vulnerable patients in long-term care facilities can be manipulated by caregivers. Jeremy Renner's 15,000-pound snowplow crushed his body with such force that he later recalled hearing the crunching of his own bones. The actor sustained 38 broken bones, a collapsed lung, severe cranial trauma, and required extensive reconstruction with metal plates to his chest, legs, and face. Among the most horrifying details he later revealed was that the impact had dislodged his left eyeball so severely that he could see it sticking out of his head with his right eye. A poor spider that was posthumously named Lawrence got stuck in this glass and couldn't climb up the smooth surface, so it apparently tried to web its way to the top until its silk ran out and it eventually perished. In 2003, 28-year-old British marine biologist Kirsty Brown was snorkeling off the coast of Antarctica when a massive leopard seal lunged from below, clamping onto her head. The powerful predator dragged her deep underwater, then repeatedly surged up and down through the water column in a torturous manner, shaking her violently before releasing her lifeless body. It was the first recorded fatal leopard seal attack on a human. Photographer Sam Davis captured the incredible moment a snake eel burst out from a heron's stomach while the bird was still flying, having chewed its way through the heron's throat using its pointed tail. Both animals were likely fatally injured. In February of 2021, a 45-year-old man named Thangula Satish died in India after his rooster, armed with a 3-inch blade for an illegal cockfight, slashed his groin as it tried to escape, severing a major artery. The rooster was briefly detained at a police station for potential evidence before being transferred to a farm.